All right, so let's jump right into today's deep dive. And, the Singapore stock market is looking a little, well, I don't want to say bleak,
Mm.
but, the STI did open lower today, dropping 0.7%.
Mm.
And NIO, that took a pretty big hit, falling almost 5%.
Mm.
And then you've got UOB, SIA, and DBS, all kind of dipped around 1%.
Right. Yeah.
So we've got a lot to cover today,
Yeah.
with Singtel, Bumetama Agri, Hourglass, Bukit, Sembawang,
Wow.
Boasted Singapore, Valuetronics, and Yoma Strategic. So we've got dividend increases, profit dips, weather's impacting palm oil,
Yeah.
and even a luxury watch retailer facing higher expenses.
Sounds like it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Right.
So let's start with Singtel.
Okay.
So their net profit for the first half of the fiscal year is down 42.4%,
Oof.
but they've also increased their interim dividend.
Okay.
So that seems a little counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does seem a little odd at first glance, but it just goes to show how important it is to look at the whole picture. Last year's profit included a one-time gain of us $1.2 billion.
Oh, wow. So while this year's results, they look worse on the surface, if you consider that unusual gain from last year, it makes a lot more sense.
Sure.
And, it does raise the question, what is their strategy with increasing the dividend?
Right.
Are they trying to reassure investors despite the profit drop?
It's a very good question,
What do
and
you-
something we should keep an eye on, to see how those investors react. But for now, let's move on to Bumetama Agri, the palm oil producer. Their Q3 profits took a 31.6% hit.
Wow.
So not exactly a sunny outlook there, huh?
No, not at all. Unfortunately, extreme weather conditions are being blamed, and that's a
Yeah.
growing concern, really, for all agricultural businesses.
Yeah.
How are these companies like Bumitama Agri adapting to, more extreme weather events? Are they investing in, climate-resilient practices? I think that's something that investors need to think about.
For sure. Long-term sustainability is key.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's talk about the Hourglass now, the luxury watch retailer.
So their earnings for the first half of the year dropped 20%. And it seems like increased operating expenses
Yeah.
are really the driving force there.
Yeah, but if we dig a little deeper, we can see that it's not just, a simple increase in expenses.
Mhm.
They've ramped up their advertising spending, and they're facing depreciation of assets and even losses from selling off equipment.
Wow.
So it really makes you think about their strategic direction here.
Right.
Are they setting themselves up for future growth, or are they just struggling to, maintain profitability?
A lot of important points to think about there. Now, on a brighter note, let's switch gears to Bukit Sembawang.
Okay.
Their earnings soared 149% in the first half of the year.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. So increased profits from their development projects are being considered the main driver here, leading to a 128% rise in gross profit.
Yeah, but the big question is, can they keep this up?
Right.
Are they overly reliant on the property market, which can be so cyclical? It's definitely something investors need to evaluate when you're looking at their long-term potential.
Proceed with cautious optimism.
Exactly.
Okay, so next up is Boosted Singapore. They're reporting a 34% increase in net profit.
Nice.
So seems like things are running pretty smoothly for them.
Yeah, they really are. Several factors contributed to this, including higher gross profit, increased interest income, and even a reversal of a previous impairment loss.
Wow.
So this kind of begs the question, does Boosted's diversified business model make them a more resilient choice, in today's kind of uncertain economic climate?
It's a great point. Diversification is definitely good for mitigating risk.
Absolutely.
All right, now let's look at Valuetronics. They saw a 10.2% jump in net profit for the first half of the year.
All right.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. And you know what? They're sharing that success with investors. They're offering both an interim dividend and a special dividend.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so, this really shows their confidence in future prospects, which could be a really positive sign for investors, but you should always dig deeper and analyze their financials to understand what's really driving this profit growth.
Right.
And assess if it's sustainable in the long term.
Solid advice. Do your due diligence.
Always.
Okay, finally, let's talk about Yoma Strategic. They're facing some headwinds right now, with net losses widening.
Yeah, it seems like the tough economic conditions in Myanmar where Yoma operates are a major factor here. We're seeing a massive 55% depreciation of the Myanmar kyat, which is really hitting their revenue.
Yeah, that's rough.
It is, and it just goes to show you how important it is to think about those geopolitical risks when you're investing in companies that are exposed to more volatile regions.
For sure. So we've covered our list of companies, and there are some trends emerging here. Some businesses are thriving in spite of all the challenges, and others are struggling with these external pressures. But before we get into the broader market news, I'm curious, what stood out to you the most from these company updates?
For me, it's just a reminder that understanding the context behind the numbers is so important.
Mm,
A profit dip doesn't always tell the whole story, and a surge in earnings may not be sustainable, so you got to dig deeper, analyze those underlying factors,
right.
and consider the broader economic and geopolitical landscape.
I completely agree. It's all about connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly.
All right, so let's move on now to some additional Singapore stock news.
Okay, it really is,
Yeah.
it's about figuring out, the why behind the what.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to some broader market news, the Singapore government announced plans to issue another $450 billion in government securities.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a huge move, right? It brings the issuance limit up to $1.515 trillion.
It really is significant. It suggests that the government is getting ready to support the economy a bit more aggressively, which could definitely impact interest rates and create some new investment opportunities.
Right.
So for investors, this could mean potentially higher returns on government securities, but it also brings up questions about inflation and, the overall health of the economy. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on how this could affect your investment strategy?
That's a great question. It definitely adds another layer of complexity to things, doesn't it?
It does.
On a different note, CLTD, the company behind Shopee, had a really positive third quarter.
Oh, that's great.
Shopee actually reached profitability in some key regions,
Nice.
which is pretty impressive considering how competitive the world of e-commerce is these days.
It really is. And it just goes to show you how much e-commerce and those digital economies are growing, especially in Southeast Asia. And, the fact that Shopee is profitable now could be a sign that the sector is maturing and becoming more, stable, which could be encouraging for investors who are interested in that space.
It seems like e-commerce is becoming less of a gamble and more of a reliable investment these days.
Yeah, it's looking that way.
And finally, Frasers Property Ltd. reported a 19% earnings jump, which they're attributing to strong residential sales in China and Australia.
Interesting. So that really highlights how interconnected global real estate markets are and the potential benefits of diversifying your investment strategy globally. So Frasers Property's success could mean that there's some strong underlying demand in those specific markets. But it's important to keep in mind that real estate can be cyclical.
Right.
What are your thoughts on real estate investing in the current climate?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think as long as you know where to look, there are always opportunities in real estate.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that wraps up the major Singapore stock news for today. We covered quite a bit, from how individual companies are doing to broader market trends and even government policies.
It's been a great deep dive. I think it shows both the challenges and the opportunities that are out there right now.
For sure. We've seen companies dealing with profit dips and weather problems, while others are benefiting from things like e-commerce growth and global real estate demand.
Exactly. It really emphasizes how important it is to make informed decisions. You got to analyze the information carefully and have a well-defined investment strategy.
I couldn't agree more. It's all about doing your research, looking at the data, and then coming up with a plan that aligns with your risk tolerance and financial goals.
Absolutely. And don't forget to seek guidance from financial professionals you trust if you need it.
Right.
Investing can be a complicated process, and having an expert on your side can make a big difference.
So true. So as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave everyone with this thought. The Singapore market, like any market, is constantly changing. There will be ups and downs, but there will also be opportunities.
Exactly.
Stay informed, stay curious, and never stop learning. So as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. The Singapore market, like all markets, is always evolving.
That's true.
There will be challenges and there will be some ups and downs.
Yeah.
But there will always be opportunities.
Yeah. Keep your eyes open.
Stay informed, stay curious, and never stop learning.
Love that. And remember, investing isn't just about making money. It's about being part of something bigger. It's about helping those companies, those industries, those economies grow. It's about helping to shape the future.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Well said. So until next time, everyone, happy investing.